So the other day, I was watching a YouTube video by a content creator that I follow by the name of Mandy Lynn. And in her video, she talked about 3 simple ways that you can start self-editing your novel. So I'm going to give you my perspective as an almost 5-year copy editor and give you some things that I look out for when I edit a book, when I copy edit a book, and in hopes that it will help you too as you self-edit your book and make your prose a little bit tighter. If you don't know who I am, my name is Andrea, the word engineer, a former engineer turned freelance book editor living in Mexico. I help aspiring authors and solopreneurs, thought leaders, subject matter experts get their books out into the world. So let's get right into today's video. So in Mandy's video, she talked about different ways that you can self-edit your novel, more from a big picture standpoint. So not necessarily looking at your grammar and your content line by line, which is what more so a copy editor does. And check out her video if you want more in-depth information on how to look at big picture edits in your story, maybe moving some passages and paragraphs around within your story, maybe outlining your story as well. So I'll make sure I'll drop her video in the description below so you can check that out for yourself. So really quickly, I just want to explain what a copy editor does, just in case you're unfamiliar with the term, and to give you a better idea of what I do in my process as a book editor. So copy editing includes checking for grammar, punctuation, and spelling, looking at your word choice, maybe choosing stronger words, and looking at your sentence structure to see if there's any repetitiveness in the sentence structures, if there's enough variety, if the pacing is good with the structure of the sentences. I also look at your clarity and your flow of your sentences. Are they clear? Does it make sense? Is there any ambiguity? Do I have any trouble understanding what you're trying to get across in your writing? I check for consistency in your tone and your voice as an author, as well as internal consistency, which includes making sure that the character names are consistent. Um, you don't want to have 2 different spellings for a particular character. Making sure that the dates are consistent. So, for example, if something took place on a Friday, and then the next day is taking place supposedly on a Thursday, that's something I would flag and say, hey, did some time pass between these 2 scenes, or should this next day be Saturday, for example? And lastly, I adhere to a specific style guide. So it just depends on what the client needs and what type of document it is. If it's a book, usually fiction or nonfiction, is going to be the style guide I use is CMOS, which is the Chicago Manual of Style. That's the standard. And sometimes when I edit like technical documents or documents for nonprofit organizations, it may be APA style or AP style, or they may have their own in-house style guide that I need to adhere to. So yeah, so that's just a little breakdown of things of what a copy editor does. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be focusing on word choices and sentence structure, as well as a little bit of your clarity and flow within your writing. So here are 5 words to watch out for and possibly cut from your novel. Let's get into the first word. So the first word is going to be just. I see this word all the time in fiction, more so fiction than nonfiction, I would say. Writers love to use the word just. So this word is often used to soften statements or add hesitation, but most of the time you don't need it. Okay, so here's the first sentence. I have an example. I just wanted to tell you that your edits made a big difference in the final version of the manuscript. Is just necessary to have in this sentence? Maybe, maybe not. All of this, information is subjective. But it's something to look out for as you go through your novel and as you edit your prose. The next example says, she just sat there staring at the screen, just waiting for inspiration to strike. So here we have just in this particular sample sentence twice within the sentence. That's something I definitely uh, that's something I would definitely cut from a book if I see it, especially 2 times within one sentence. I feel that's a bit repetitive and unnecessary. So let's go to the next page and see how we can improve these sentences just a bit. So here we have the example sentences here. The first one next to the bullet point, we have just highlighted in yellow. And in the next sentence, the sentence that has been edited, we just remove just. So it's not even necessary to include it in this particular sentence. It really, using it kind of slows down the pace of your writing, as well as it just adds unnecessary words. And similarly, in the next sentence, you can maybe keep it in there for one of the areas. Maybe just she just sat there, or maybe she sat there staring at the screen just waiting for inspiration. You could keep it in for one of them if you wanted to, but in my opinion, if I was editing this, I would probably just remove both of them because they're not necessary. So just is the first word. So the next one we have is really and very. So these intensifiers are vague. In most cases, it's best to swap them for something more specific or something more vivid to really paint that picture for the reader, you know? So in these two example sentences, we have, he was really upset when he saw the notes from the editor and didn't know how to move forward. The apartment was very small, barely enough space to fit a bed and a desk. So in these sentences, we have the first one really, the next one very. So let's see how we can improve these two sentences, or how would you improve them? Write in the comments how you think I would change up these two example sentences instead of using really upset and very small. Right? Drop it in the comments below. So for the first example sentence, I have, he was really upset. And then instead of using really upset in this case, we changed it to devastated. So let's highlight that in green. So this gives the reader, this paints a picture for the reader that makes it really shows the reader how this particular character is feeling. Apart from really upset, he was devastated, like destroyed. So devastated feels like I don't want to say stronger word, but maybe just a more descriptive word, and really just gives your readers a better feeling of what this character is going through. And then similarly, in the next example, we have the apartment was very small. So instead of very small, I put tiny. The apartment was tiny. So when you come across these particular intensifiers in your novel, so you can have really, very, pretty, quite, these type of little small modifiers. In most cases, you can make your prose just a tad bit tighter if you use just a more descriptive word. And if you can't think of a more descriptive word at the top of your head, maybe having like a little bit of brain fog, you can just type in, you can just use the dictionary. I like to use Merriam-Webster online dictionary, and you can type in, for example, small. And then at the top here, you have, it's highlighted in red where it says dictionary. You want to click on thesaurus. And then here you see all of the synonyms and words that are similar to the word small, and you have your relevance level here. So the darker in orange the word is, that means that definition is more closely related to this specific definition. And then the lighter it gets in the relevance, that means it's similar, but not maybe necessarily the same. And you can just scroll through here. It gives you a whole lot of different possible words that you can use in your books to make your prose tighter or make it more descriptive. It also gives you antonyms quite a bit as well. And then for this particular word, this example, small, it has various definitions. So at the top, the first definition is small as in a little. In the second definition, it says it's small in degree. So the synonyms are slightly different than in the first definition, as well as there's another one, a third definition for small, which is lacking importance as well. I think there's pretty, as in pretty, not broad or open in views or opinions. So small-minded, so something like that. So small actually has four different definitions. And they also give you some examples at the bottom of how you could use this word, and give you more examples of synonyms that you could use in your book. So let's move on to the third example. The third example is that. I know that people love using that. So sometimes this word, it can be necessary. but oftentimes it's also redundant. So when you're writing, look out for words like knew, realized, said, or thought, because it's usually followed by the word that, and in most cases, it's probably not necessary to use the word. So we have our two example sentences here. She believed that he was right. He was the right choice for the project, even though no one else agreed. And in the second sentence, I remembered that we walked all the way across town just to find that little bookstore. So in this example sentence here, right, we have that two times. So in one of these that's is necessary for this sentence to make sense, but the other one is not. Can you figure out which one is the unnecessary that? Drop it in the comments below. I'll give you a moment to do that. All right, let's check out how I would edit this particular example. So in the first one, I think it's pretty obvious. She believed that he was the right choice for the project, or we can just remove that completely. She believed he was the right choice for the project. That's not necessary, so you can cut that word from that particular sentence. In the next example, I remember that we walked all the way across town just to find that little bookstore. So in this particular example, that's right here that I have highlighted in yellow is not necessary. It is not necessary at all. But the second that in this sentence is necessary for this sentence to make sense. And one way that you can kind of tell or kind of help you figure out which that is necessary or which that is unnecessary is to read the sentence removing that, right? So for example, if we were to write this sentence like this, but we remove the second that, how would that sound? I remember that we walked all the way across town just to find little bookstore. So that doesn't make sense, right? Because we need that identifier of which bookstore are we talking about? That bookstore. So in this case, that is needed. The second that is needed, but the first that after remember is not needed. So you can cut that one from your writing. All right, and the fourth one I have is suddenly. Even, traditional authors and authors that are more, I guess, have more experience writing, sometimes they'll still use suddenly in their novel if they feel it's appropriate. But in some cases, or in many cases, I would say suddenly is probably not necessary for your writing. Why? Because it often tells rather than shows, and I'm sure you've heard this many times in your writing career, show don't tell, right? So let the action or reaction build the surprise. So we have our two example sentences here. Suddenly the lights flickered and the whole room went dark, making her drop the glass she was holding. And in the second sentence, he suddenly turned and sprinted toward the gate, ignoring the voices calling after him. So I think this one may be pretty obvious. How would you change this particular sentence without using suddenly? I think it's pretty obvious. Just remove suddenly from the writing. So suddenly is one of those words that if the action is supposed to be sudden for the reader, if you include the word sudden or suddenly, then it's no longer quote unquote sudden because you already used the word sudden for the reader. So it's already given them kind of a heads up. So in most cases, I would say just get rid of sudden and just go straight into the action, and then as the reader is reading that particular sentence, that's going to be sudden for them as they read it. So it's not necessary to use the word sudden. As again, this is very subjective. And if you want to use sudden in your writing, you can definitely do it. But if you are trying to cut words from your book, and tighten up your prose, then it might be a word that you could probably cut from your writing. All right, so let's go into the last one, number 5. And remember, I'm going to drop a part 2 of these 5 words. So make sure you check out that video next week. Okay, so in number 5, we have started to and began to. So why are these two particular words unnecessary for your writing? So these words weaken action and slow down your pacing of your story. So if the action is complete, meaning it's finished, then just use the stronger verb. So we're going to go over a few examples. So we have example 1. She started to laugh, but then caught herself when she saw the look on his face. And then we have example 2. He began to pack his things slowly, knowing he might never return to this place again. So in these two example sentences, how do you think I would edit them just using the stronger verb? Take a moment and drop it in the comments right now. Okay, so in the first sentence, we just completely removed started to completely, and we changed laugh to laughed, right? So we'll just highlight that in green. So instead of she started to laugh, we can just say she laughed. That's it. She laughed. Then caught herself when she saw the look on his face. So that's how I would edit that sentence. And in the second example, we have he began to pack. So similarly, we just get rid of began to do it and just use packed. He packed his things slowly, knowing he might never return to this place again. So if you're in the process of editing your prose, trying to make your sentences more tighter, more concise, these are 5 words you can cut from your book, whether you're writing fiction or whether you're writing nonfiction. So what do you do when you spot these words in your novel as you're going through your self-editing? Don't worry. These words show up all the time in every first draft, and that's why you edit. That's why you self-edit. Like I'm in the process of writing my very first book, and I know I use the word just a lot. I probably have too many that's. I may have some started to and began to in there as I tell some of my experiences that I went through as far as moving abroad. So yeah, I haven't started my self-editing for my manuscript yet, but I know it's gonna be fun. And I may even do a video for that. So let me know in the comments if that's something you would be interested in. And number 2, use the find tool. So you can search for these words specifically at a time and look for them in your book to see if you really need these words, right? So using the find tool in Word, you would click here at the top where it says editing, right? You would click down and then you come across the word that says find, and there's a magnifying glass there as well. So you click on that, and then it pulls up a navigation panel off to the left hand side, and you can just make sure it's clicked on results, and then you have a search bar here, and you want to type in the word just, and it'll show you every single place where this word shows up in your manuscript. It also shows you here that the word just was used 14 times in this document. So if you have a full manuscript, for example, this could be 100, this could be 100 plus. So yeah, so definitely look at the results section here. So if you have like over like 100 just in your novel, that might be a good idea. It might be a good idea to get rid of it might be a good idea to get rid of that particular word or shorten it up a bit. Okay, so let's try. We can even do the word that. That shows up 15 times in the manuscript or in this particular document. And you can also hover over a particular section, right? And it shows you what page, as you can see, what page this particular that is on. And you can click on it and it shows you where that word is in your document. So I really love the find tool in Word, and I use that quite a bit when I go through and edit a manuscript. So in number 3, it says the third thing you can do, you can replace or delete that particular word. You can choose a stronger verb or just trim the fat, as they say. So, for example, in choosing a stronger verb, that would be if you used really or very or quite. Remember, in the example, we had very small, and we changed that word to a more stronger or descriptive word. We changed it to tiny. So that's one way that you can replace a word and makes your prose a bit tighter and a bit more descriptive. Or if it's a word like that or just or suddenly, you can just completely remove it from your writing. And in the fourth one, you can read the word out loud. If it sounds soft or repetitive, if you feel like you've read the word over and over and over again, like as I'm going through a manuscript, if I tend to see one particular word like many times and it starts to stand out to me that it becomes so glaring to me, because sometimes that happens, then I might just delete. I might get into a space where I'm just like deleting a word every single time I see it just because I've seen it so much. So yeah, so if that happens to you as you're doing your self editing, you may come across specific words that you use a lot and they just become so glaring and obvious to you and you're like, dang, I can't even I didn't realize I used the word so much. So yeah, so I'm curious to see which words when I do my self edit for my manuscript, I'm curious to see which words are like that for me because I don't know just yet. So we'll see. So, what are some words that you use repetitively or over and over? Are some words that you know that perhaps you can cut from your novel at this very moment right now? Drop it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and be sure to check out my next video where I'll be dropping part 2, 5 more words and phrases that you can cut from your novel that are unnecessary. But remember, this is all subjective. Read your novel if you feel it's necessary for that particular line or that particular character. Maybe you want to keep it in, but if you're trying to tighten up your prose and make it more concise, maybe you want to delete it. It's more so a case by case situation. But these are some words that I look out for as I copy edit a novel. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you like the video, and make sure you drop a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.